warm welcome to Yarning with Bee. I'm Beatrice, and today I present to you episode 2 of Bee's Knits. Winter has not really loosened its grip over Sweden just quite yet. We got a fresh coat of snow the day before yesterday, and we're expecting a lot of snow tomorrow as well. So today I thought I would focus mostly on cozy, warm, fluffy garments. And what makes garments extra warm and fluffy? Mohair and brushed alpaca. So I will primarily be speaking about garments which incorporate those elements. I'll start with what I'm wearing. This is one of my favorite slipovers. I wear it a lot for work, and this is knitted in, I couldn't for the life of me find the pattern for this that I used, and that's probably just as well because I made a lot of modifications to it to make it suit my preferences, as it were. I can show you. It's ducktail. It's quite short, and I have a twisted rib in the waist and neck. I chose not to make any edging along the sleeves because I actually quite like the way that it curls in a little bit. So I really just used the original pattern to guide me as to how many stitches to cast on and a little bit in how to divide for sleeves and neckline. Now, since I don't have a pattern to share with you here, I'm not primarily going to talk about that, but rather about the yarn, because I think it's so interesting how using two different yarns and a strand of mohair can really change the look of the garment. For this slipover, I used hand-dyed yarn by Schyssta Nystan, who is active in the south of Sweden. And this was I used a merino silk in this color and a silk mohair, I'm not sure the tag, a silk mohair in this much darker color. So as you can see, what I consider to be the main color is not very dark. It's a grayish blue, almost metallic in color. And the mohair, silk mohair, is a lot darker. And that's really what took over in this, in the fabric. So even though you can see kind of the main color coming through a little bit, the mohair takes over so much. This may seem like a really obvious thing, but I still think that it can be so difficult when you're standing by a wall of yarn in a store, looking at the different colors, trying to find a combination and envisioning how it's going to look when you actually knit it up. And I've had other experiences when the mohair is lighter and it just doesn't come through that much at all. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with this garment. Like I said, it's really warm and fluffy, and also really soft because it has superwash merino and mulberry silk in this color, and super kid mohair and mulberry silk in the mohair strand. So it's a real favorite with me. It's also worn really well, I can tell you. And I think garments with a strand of mohair, in my experience, actually do wear quite well. Like I said, I've worn this a lot, and it hasn't started pilling or anything, and it looks really fresh, as though it's still new, pretty much. Right, so last time I said I would endeavor to have a finished Possit cardigan to show you today. I'm not finished with the Possit cardigan. I got distracted by a couple of different things, which I will return to later, but I still want to show you my progress because I have made good progress. I haven't stagnated, but I am somewhat marooned on Sleeve Island at the moment. So since the last episode, I finished the body and added the neckband and a 2-stitch I-cord bind off, which runs along the full neckline and the full hem at the bottom. And now I am a fair way through the first sleeve. If I can find the sleeve, there it is. So I'm making good progress. Honestly, I allowed myself to get distracted quite easily because I tired a little bit with two things that I wanted, I just wanted a break from. Partly it was the 2.5mm needles. The recommended needles to meet gauge were 3.5mm needles, and that would have made quite a lot of difference, I think. But I needed 2.5mm needles to meet gauge here. So that's a little bit tedious after a while. And what's even more tedious is the endless number of yarn ends to weave in. I mean, to get this effect, I have to change yarn every other row. I just knit two rows and garter stitch, and then I switch colors. So by a quick estimation, by the time I'm finished with this cardigan, I will have sewn in somewhere between 500 and 600 yarn ends. And it took a little while for me to find a way that worked well. Initially, this is knitted from the top down. So initially, I tried to, now I'm going to show you the inside, so please don't judge. Initially, I tried to weave in the ends as I went. You know, when I on every right side row, put the yarn in front and behind, so that it would weave in very nicely. However, I quickly found that didn't work at all. So here is the right side of where I did that, and I don't know if you can tell on camera, but the fabric pulled quite severely, and I think if I had continued to do it this way, it would have skewed the whole garment. I assume the reason that this didn't work is because, one, the yarn is so thin, and two, the color changes are so incredibly frequent. So what I found worked for me was to sew in the yarn ends with a needle instead, and to avoid having to sew in between 500 and 600 yarn ends at the end, I decided to do that as I went along. It does make for a little bit of a thicker fabric on one side of the garment, but that's unavoidable, really. So I sewed in one yarn end from each color straight along the rows, along the ridges, and the other yarn end on the diagonal. So they kind of lock each other in, and they also bulk up the fabric in a more even way, I think. I assume, I don't know. But this has worked fine anyway, but it's incredibly time consuming. So there's my Possit cardigan update for you. I'll say again, next time it will be done, I hope. I've kind of gotten into the groove of it now with the sleeves and the magic loop with the sleeves, and combining that with the frequent color changes. So yeah, I'm on a roll. Now to my little distractions. One of the distractions is actually that I have spent quite a lot of time the past month not knitting, but rather cross-stitching. And by the time I'm recording this, I have already gifted that finished piece. So I'm going to leave over now to Beatrice in the past. Take it away. Thank you very much. So a little more than a month ago, I had the brilliant idea to cross-stitch a gift for my nephew for his christening, which was in a month. So I had a bit of a tight deadline there. And I went online and I tried to find a project that, one, would be able to ship really quickly so I could get started, and two, wouldn't be too complicated and take too much time so that I wouldn't have to stress about it. And I found this little elephant, which I thought was incredibly cute. It arrived a couple of days later, and I very quickly realized that what I had anticipated to be a quick project would not be so, since this little guy actually contains 16 different colors. So I set to work. I had a deadline every day, you know, to complete a couple of threads, and I made good progress. And I think that it turned out really nice. It has, I mean, the 16 colors, even though it takes so much longer to make it, it does make him look really, really alive and varied. And I am incredibly happy with the result. And by now I will have given this away to my tiny little nephew, who does not care how much time I put into this gift, but I do. I wish I could recommend this this brand to you, since I like the result so much. And the kit came with a frame and everything, which was really convenient. But unfortunately, I received too little yarn in one of the main shades, one of the light greens and the elephant's head, which was also supposed to be in the balloon. And I have it in this stripe here, but not in this one, where it was also supposed to be. I had to substitute it for one of the blue ones. I don't think it affects the result very much, but since I received way too much yarn in some of the other shades, it's a bit of a shame that I didn't get enough in that one. And also, to be honest, the quality of the frame is not great. And it was really hard to fit the finished work into the frame. It required 2 people and 2 screwdrivers to get it in there, because it was so tight and it broke very easily. So I actually had to break the frame basically a little bit to get the result in there. That's it from me. Now back to you, Beatrice in the present. Thank you for that. Now, I'm sure you noticed that Beatrice in the past very diligently told you that she couldn't recommend this brand of cross-stitching, and then promptly forgot to tell you what that brand was. So luckily, I remember. It's called Luca S. And like I said, it's a shame because they had some very, very cute designs. And maybe this was a one-off, I don't know, but it was just a little bit of a disappointment that way. Right, so the other thing that distracted me from my color work on the Possit cardigan was that I started seeing all these beautiful spring colors popping up in Mohair, like really thick, beautiful Mohair yarns. I think one of them was Bella by Permin, and the other one was a Sandness, yeah, ballerina, chunky ballerina, I think. And they came in these really like greens and pinks and light blues and yellows, and inspired me to kind of, well, first of all, make something in needles that were a little bit thicker than my 2.5 millimeter needles, but also to make something that popped with color, felt like spring, but was still really warm and cozy to wear as a kind of transition between winter and spring. So I started to look at patterns and different yarns that I could use for this, but you know, if it's going to be a really stylish, timeless garment that takes months to make and you can wear for years and years and years, yeah, then I would probably be willing to pay a little bit more for the yarn. But this was supposed to be just a quick and fun knit, and the yarns were quite pricey and a lot was required, and I didn't really want to pay upwards of 1,000 Swedish kroner, or like 100 euros, to make something that was supposed to be just quick and fun. So I found a compromise and located this Drops Melody Brushed Alpaca, which has much the same qualities as chunky mohair yarns. This one is 71% alpaca, 25% wool, and 4% polyamide. And it's very, very soft, so you can easily wear it straight on the skin. And about the same thickness of the chunky mohairs that I found. I also found a pattern that worked really well with this yarn. It's Drops Designs Blueberries and Cream. The yarn is called Drops Melody. I don't know if I mentioned. And the total, it said it was going to require 6 balls of yarn, so the total yarn cost was a little bit more than 60 Swedish crowns per ball, so it amounted to 372 krona, or about 35 euros. But when I knitted this, and if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen that this was a super duper quick knit. It literally only took me like 4 or 5 days. Also because it was really addictive and it grew so quickly. It's the 1x1 rib is on 4.5 millimeter needles, and the body is on 6 millimeter needles, so it just grew so quickly, and also is so cozy to work with. I lost my place now. Goodness. Right, so it only required 4 balls of yarn in total. Quite exactly 4 balls of yarn, which means 2 things. The actual cost of this only amounted to about 250 kroner, which is incredibly affordable. And I also ended up with 2 extra balls of yarn, which is why this one is completely unopened. And I have started knitting a hat, a just very simple ribbed winter hat with the other spare ball. I really want to sing the praises both of the yarn and the pattern because it was so simple. It has a 1x1 ribbed neckline. It's double, so you start from the top and you knit, I think it was 9 centimeters here, and then you just knit it together. So it's double and you're done with the construction already from the beginning. There's no what's it called? There's no making up of the garment once you're done knitting. It's finished. Once you're finished, you're finished. It has some short rows in the back, which is always nice, especially if, like me, you have not great posture and kind of need that extra fabric in the back. It has a raglan sleeve, and I made it a little bit longer than the pattern said, and also the sleeves are sort of ballooned. You make them straight all the way to the bottom and then decrease a lot of stitches in the last stocking stitch row and finish off with a cuff in 1x1 rib. I wear this all the time now. It's probably one of the warmest sweaters that I own. maybe the warmest sweater that I own. And it's so light, it only weighs 200 grams because it only contains four balls of yarn. And if you are quite new to knitting, I would definitely recommend this pattern. Like I said, it's called the Drops Blueberries and Cream in Drops Melody, because it's a rewarding, quick, fun knit with easy to follow instructions. So go for it. I am tempted to make another one in another color, but that may have to wait because I have lots of other things in the making, as you know. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is how this is going to wear, because I've noticed already, like when I sit on my couch, it sheds a lot. And that's to be expected, I suppose, with brushed alpaca. And as long as it doesn't make the garment look worn and old quickly, that's fine. I can just vacuum it up. But we'll see. We'll see how that works out. And yeah, the hat is going to be a very quick knit as well. I'm using the Drops pattern called Scenic Snow, but they recommend 5.5mm needles, and I'm using 4.5mm needles because that's what I used on the ribbing in the sweater, and I really don't want a garment that is looser knit than that. So there we are. That's my quick knit of the year. Another very cozy winter favorite of mine is called the City Balaclava by Schyssta Nystan. This is what it looks like. It's like a hood and a scarf in one. I've seen a lot of patterns for balaclavas in the past couple of years. They've become really, really popular. And I totally get why, because they're so cozy and you avoid that gap of cold air between the scarf and the hat. It just goes all in one. I'll show you how it looks in the pattern, my very tried and tested little piece of paper. This pattern is available in English as well, by the way, on Ravelry, so don't worry about that. The recommended yarn is Lanagato VIP or Sunless Alpaca Silk, which is knitted together with Permanent Angel or KFO's Soft Silk Mohair or Rams Alpaca Silk. I didn't use any of those yarns. So I actually used a very improvised combination of yarns for this, which was by a hand dyer called Humlelyckan, and I think it was a sock yarn that I found at a yarn festival. I used every last little centimeter of that yarn, except for my tension square, which I still have. So I don't have the label or anything left. But I knitted that together with a very, very thin alpaca, like this thin, because I thought that it would give me the frosty winter morning look that I wanted. The tension square looks like this. And I wasn't really happy with how that looked. I wanted it to look a little bit more snowy and a little bit more like a frosty morning, like I said. So I found a very cheap white mohair that I just knitted along with it. And that really changed the look and feel of the fabric. I don't know if it shows very well on camera. Yeah, no, it does. It does show all right. Both the color and the kind of fluffiness of the garment was improved, I felt, and it gave it more the look that I was after. I'm going to put it on for you so you can see what it looks like. Okay, here I am. And one thing that you may notice is that it's quite tight around the face. The pattern is a little bit unspecific as to how you're supposed to count and think when you pick up stitches around the face and as soon as I was done, I noticed that I definitely picked up too few, so it's quite tight, which I think looks a little bit funny. But on the other hand, it sits very well, like it doesn't fall down, and also I don't get any cold air in through any gaps here. But I do think it looks almost nicer to have the hood down and wear it like this. Also, it has quite a funny shape in the back. I feel a little bit like a medieval peasant when I wear it. If it was a little bit longer, I could keep my snacks here. But anyway, I do like it and I wear it. I just think it's a little bit funny looking in some ways. But it was an easy and fun and quick knit. You start by knitting 2 pieces back and forth, front and back, because this falls over your shoulders. And then you knit in the round for a little bit. And then you start knitting the whole hood back and forth with some increases and then decreases along the top. And then you do I think it was a 3-needle bind off at the top. Pick up stitches around the face and just do a stocking stitch edge, which you then sew in to the inside. And there is an I-cord along that you insert into the whole what's it called, tube that you make. So yeah, I like it, I wear it, and it's very, very, very cozy. And this is, I mean, like you saw, it did definitely affect the color to add the strand of mohair, but with the white mohair, the difference between what happened to this yarn, here it is. When I added the dark blue mohair, the difference is immense. So you may be very much aware of this already, but it was certainly a learning experience, and is still a learning experience for me to choose base yarns and mohair yarns that go well together. And it can be fun surprises that you discover as well. Now, those were the garments that I wanted to share with you today. I received a really, really nice gift from a friend this past week. You may or may not be familiar with the amazing crochet designer Moa Blomqvist, who goes under the name Honse Design. She's very active on Instagram, and she is a designer, a crocheter, an artist, and a yarn store owner who lives and has her store in Varberg, which is about 1.5 or 2 hours south of Gothenburg, where I live on the west coast of Sweden. And she recently had a book release with crochet patterns, which my friend gave to me. My friend's mother works in this yarn store, so she has a direct line there. I mean, just look at that cover picture. Who doesn't want a balaclava like that in those colors? She has really, really cool patterns. Like, the colors are super cool, and they're all crochet, but she calls it fake knit. So it's crocheted in a way that makes it look like it's knitted. For example, these test squares and little brioche patterns. So I've had a lot of fun reading through this book, learning about techniques. I'm not an avid crocheter, but I do crochet on occasion, mostly some scarves and a quite complicated blanket by Jane Crowfoot, which I will show you sometime. I'll have a crochet special episode. But of course, I am now incredibly tempted to make patterns from this book, like this one, or my personal favorite called Crawford Court. One moment. This one. And like you can see, it is, I mean, it looks like brioche knitting, and then ribs along the cuffs and the buttonholes, but it's all crocheted. I think that's super inspiring and really, really cool. And one of the things that is also really fun with this is that, I mean, she uses the same brands of yarns that I usually use for knitting. And usually when you look at crochet, maybe it's more just acrylic or plain cotton or you know, other types of materials. But that's not what she does. And she also has some really cool hand-dyed yarns that she sells in her store. So that's something that I will be exploring in spring. I mean, those colors that she uses as well are really, really spring and summer inspired. And my wonderful friend also gave me a couple of brushed alpaca balls of yarn. And since this is a mohair and brushed alpaca episode, what better way to end it off than by showing these beautiful thin brushed alpaca balls and kind of thinking about what I can make with them, because these are two really interesting colors, I think. The yarn is Chaos yarn, organic brushed alpaca, in the colors Magnetic and Gracious. I probably wouldn't have picked these up in the store, but they go really well together. It's like it's a little bit retro, and I do love retro design and retro colors. So I'm thinking that I may try to make a double knitted headband in these colors and in these yarns, because I think there should be enough in these two balls to make that. But that may have to wait until fall. We will see. Just a little bit of final inspiration for soft, fluffy garments to leave you off with for today. That's all for me today, so thank you so much for watching and happy knitting. I'll see you in a couple of weeks for another installment of Bee's Books. Bye!